Good morning, everybody. My name is Rick Paul. I'm the Partner Development Manager here for Autotask Workplace. Today, we are going to be doing a demonstration for end users, which we're going to be reviewing Autotask Workplace. Before we go into the live demonstration of the end user experience, let's give a quick review of Workplace. Autotask Workplace is an enterprise-grade file sync and share system. It is built for businesses. And the key pillars of Workplace is the security, the control and the availability of the application. So you're going to be able to securely share content both internally with your fellow employees as well as securely share content externally. Control of that content and also making the content available and accessible regardless of where you are, whether that's going to be accessing the content on your laptop, whether that's going to be accessing over your mobile devices, iPhones, Androids, for example, or right in the office. All of this results in effective collaboration, both internally within the organization as well as externally with partners that you may be sharing content with. Autotask Workplace is also designed for organizations really across any industry. So as we're seeing on your screen right now, some examples: construction organizations, healthcare, legal organizations, marketing and advertising, just to name a few. Okay. Strong enterprise-grade file sync and share built for the businesses as you're seeing here and others. So for the overview this morning, we're going to be providing a demonstration of the Workplace system for end users. And let's talk about what we're going to be reviewing in today's presentation. As mentioned, we're going to be talking about the end user experience. We'll start off with the invitation email that end users receive when they are subscribed to the service. We'll then move over to the desktop agent and settings, how you can work locally with Workplace, the local sync folder itself, and then we'll move over to the online portal, in which we'll be discussing working with projects, creating and sharing public links. Then I'll also move over to the administration side. So let's get started. Invitation email. You're seeing on your screen, this is an example of an invitation email that a recipient would receive when they are signed up for Autotask Workplace. This email is sent to the recipient where they can then activate their account. And this is the invitation email is sent from your service provider, which you are receiving the service from. Now let's go into the live system. Let's talk about the actual desktop agent itself, specifically on the screen. So as you're seeing on my screen right now, I'm going to click into my desktop agent in the icon at the bottom tray. Here is where I have the ability to set up my preferences and work locally on my laptop or device. So right now, this is my desktop agent, specifically on the laptop, which I'm providing the presentation. As you're seeing here, it identifies which projects I am going to be syncing down to this device. It also shows my storage allocation, how much storage I'm consuming against what's been allocated to myself. And here's where I can also set up the preferences for this device. As you're seeing here, I'm going to be syncing content from the Workplace cloud down to this laptop. My preference is I'd like to ask before syncing. As you're seeing, we can also automatically sync content, or I can manually sync content. This is a user preference. As I move down, I can also enable my Microsoft Office locking support. So with that, it gives me that ability to automatically lock files when they're opened on this device. And as you're seeing at the screen here as well, these are the folders which I am syncing down directly now. I do have the ability to then even selectively sync content if I wish, specifically to this device. I can also sync projects which are not on this machine at the moment. If I'd like to sync others that are in the cloud service, I can do so. We also have the ability to have a folder sync tab. This is the ability for me to go in and actually sync a project. So if I'd like to create a project within the Workplace service and pull content from this device, I can. I can click in, browse my computer, choose the appropriate files that I'd like to bring in, select and create a project in the service, and then I can start sharing that content within my organization. Autotask Workplace also includes file folder backup. This is a policy which has been granted to you as an end user. You may have the backup of personal data. Think of this as more archive data. This is content which is not being shared with other people, organizations. This may be set up for you can set the backups yourself, or as you're noticing down here at the bottom left, the backup path may be controlled by your administrator within the organization, whether that's your service provider or your IT representative. And last but not least, we have our network tab. Here's where I can manage the control, the connection that I'm working with, and then also the speed control for upload. Okay. So this desktop agent, as we're seeing, gives the ability to the end user, based on the policies that have been granted to them, ability to work locally. Now I'm going to go back to this desktop agent again. And we're going to click here. I could go to the Workplace Online experience, which you're seeing in the background, or I can click on Workplace and I can go directly to my Workplace folder. Here is the projects which I am syncing to this machine. Specifically, the green check marks identify that they are currently synced to the cloud service. Here's that project example that we'll use today for our overview demonstration. This project has some subfolders. So I can click into that content. I have the ability to make changes. I can lock folders here if I'd wish. I can right-click in. I can add comments. I can open Workplace if I need to, and I can even create public links. So if I'd like to share this roadshow list with somebody and I want to publicly share, I'll create a public link. This then allows for me to identify the policy that I'm going to assign out for this document. So in this case, I may want to share this document Excel worksheet with somebody outside my organization. I'm going to send them a direct link. I will let them have access to, say, the original file. In this case, maybe I'd like to auto-expire it after a certain amount of time. So I can determine what that time frame looks like, specific time, or I could even password protect or expire after access count. So in many cases, employees like to work locally off their machine. Autotask Workplace allows for them to do so. I can click back in that example. I can create new folders here, which will then be synced up to the cloud service. So that is working locally. That's our desktop agent. The employees will have access to the agents. They can apply on their devices. There may be device approvals that may be required. That is going to be specific to your organization and the policies that have been set forward. Now with that, we'll move over to the online portal. So in this instance, we are now looking at an end user experience. This is an example of someone that's logged in over the web. So specifically here, we are seeing the dashboard. In this case, I'm seeing all my favorites. These are either projects or documents I am quite often, thus the stars. As I scroll down, it will give then my account information, again, how much storage I'm utilizing, the devices that I have associated, the projects, and I could even install Workplace directly on a device here if I need to, the Workplace agent. So we're going to move into this project example I showed you a moment ago locally. As you're seeing here, it is a public link right now. It's also a favorite. So as we move into the project, you're seeing that this project is consisting of 1, 2, 3 folders, as well as a document that resides under the main project example. Okay. Now, sharing projects and content within the organization is very simple. So, for example, if I'd like to share just the client events project, for example, which has some roadshow lists in here, DNS presentation. If I'd like to share this out, I can quickly just click Shares. I can then associate in the appropriate resource. So maybe if I'd like to share this with Brendan, I can do so. I can then also associate the permissions. Permissions are inherited within Workplace. So as you're seeing, we can go right from full access to the documents within this folder. We can move down to create and modify, read only, and then online view only, which is a very secure form of sharing. You can even add a watermark preview to this if you wish. Now in doing so, from the security, I'm going to select, say, read only for Brendan in this instance. I do not want him to make any changes or modify. In this case, I'm also not going to allow him to reshare the content within the organization or externally via public links. So myself as the owner of this project, when I'm sharing, I do have the ability to control who has access to the projects in the folders within. It's granular in nature. And also what's important to note is that project security is inherited when you do the shares. So if we move back to the example again of the project at the root level, if I share this project at the core and I share that with, say, read-only to Brendan in that scenario, he would then have read-only access to all of the subsequent subfolders of that project. So let's go back into the client events folder. Now we're seeing here that this roadshow list that I'm working on right now is locked. So this lock will propagate to other resources that have access to this folder. The other two members that have access to the client events and this roadshow list will see that that is now locked. They'll receive a notification that it's locked, and then also that if they do wish to open and make changes, they are not going to override the current version of the document. That'll just be saved as a version. Within Workplace, we capture version control. So we capture 6 months of versions against a document. So in this case, this roadshow list has 3 versions. I can even go in and manage those previous versions if I'm the owner of the document. Okay. If I need to go back and revert to a previous time frame, I can. We'll go back to that current version. Now, in addition, if I'm working in a folder, I do also have the ability to add comments. So if I'd like to make a change in a comment and notify somebody, I have updated, for example. Please review. I may then want to send it out to the appropriate resources that are members of this project, specifically this folder. So very simple to add comments, to share the content, and then also creating those public links that I talked about earlier when we were local. I can do this roadshow list here. Go in, right-click, share, and create publicly. And again, a public link is sharing content outside of your organization. Apply the appropriate rules, and then I can either send the link, attach via email with as well the Outlook plugin for Workplace, which will then attach the secure link. Now, in addition to working locally within my system, I also have the ability to see all of the projects which I'm a member of, which I've created, which I've been invited to. I can also see my devices. So these are the devices that I'm attached to Workplace. So you see I've got some offline ones that I have previous ones, and I've got my current one. I can easily just click into the device itself, see all my project statuses. I can see previous versions of documents. I can capture the backup statuses of older folders that I may not be sharing now. And I could even remote access if the policy has been enabled into my local computer if remote access has been enabled for me. If you need assistance when you're working locally, or excuse me, online, you can just click to help. You can ask a question specifically to your service provider. Their information will be listed here. Or you can access the Workplace help in addition, which will give you access to videos, tutorials, as well as FAQs. Okay, so let's go back into the presentation. So what we just reviewed was the end user experience, from the invitation email to working locally on your laptop via the desktop agent, as well as then working online via Workplace Online. Now, in both instances, you have the ability to work in Mac environments, Windows environments, as well as the browser of your choice. So we're now going to move over and talk about a little bit about the end user administration. So you do need to be an administrator to have the capabilities that I'm going to show briefly here next. But the administrator has the ability to set up configuration of your environment, branding of the actual online experience, Active Directory integration, policy management, and policies are very important because that determines what the end users, the groups, the teams are going to have access to, managing devices, and then at the end, reporting. So with that, we're going to move over to a different existence. Let's look at an administrative view. So we are now looking at a fictional company called TaylorMade. I'm now Jeff Rinsler. Now in this instance, Jeff, unlike the previous view, is a super administrator. Jeff has the ability to configure the instance of the organization. So the user interface looks very familiar to what we saw a moment ago from a standard user, with a few minor changes. So if I scroll down, it gives me my dashboard, my favorites, locked files, I can see all the projects, the account information, and then the devices, and so forth. But what's different in Jeff's environment than the previous one we just saw a moment ago is the ability to configure the workspace. So in this case, Jeff has access to the team. Jeff has access to configuration as well as reports, which a standard user does not see. So let's start off in configuration. Configuration, as I mentioned, is where the administrator is configuring the workspace for the organization. So in this case, company branding. Most likely going to want to place the TaylorMade logo here and change out the workplace logo. Place in the color schemes that are appropriate for the organization, so tailor this specifically towards the TaylorMade team. We'll then want to assign Active Directory integration. So Active Directory integration, we do support 3 levels. That's going to be on-premise, Azure, as well as LDAP. We can also enable single sign-on. So if I'd like to enable single sign-on, say via Okta, we can do so as well. Then last but not least, our policy profiles. Policy profiles are assigned to teams. They can then also be assigned specifically to end users as well as groups. So we're going to look at the team defaults here under the policy profiles. We're going to add some policies, and we'll show all the selected. So what we're viewing now is a list of all the policies that could be applied to TaylorMade, with some of them that are already applied. So as we move through, we have the ability to set up the security, in this case, of the team default. We do allow for IP address whitelisting. The public links that we talked about a moment ago, are we going to allow this team or the users or the groups the ability to even allow to share externally? The watermark preview, which is assigned to the online view sharing policy that we saw a few moments ago. Then as I move through the security, I do have the ability to enable and require device approvals for the team members, wiping data when accounts have been disabled or deleted. As we move down to password policies, as you can see, we have a robust policies that you can apply. In the instance that we're looking at right now, I don't really have any assigned. I'm going to probably want to tighten up the password policies associated to this organization. We can also set up the workplace desktop. This is the agent that we saw a few moments ago. The enabled backup that we saw. so we can turn back up on the capabilities for the end user. We can also manage the backup folder as a policy. We can dictate which projects must be synced to devices. We can also set up the throttle control, specifically of the upload and download. The administrator is then also going to be setting up the mobile experience. So specifically, are they going to allow the end users to edit content, export content, add or create? We may want to add a second level of authentication onto the system. Online editing. So within Workplace, when we open a document, you are going to be able to open locally, but we can also have online editors, which you can also open the document, say, for example, in Office 365, Google Docs, OneDrive. We can enable multi-user editing in those instances. These are editors that are based on policy, and you can even set a default editor as a preference when you're opening your documents. Last but not least, we're also going to be able to enable notifications, so restrict emails to administrators on welcome emails as well as storage emails. So as we're seeing here, the admin has the ability to configure the team, the directory, the branding, and then those policies. And in essence, what the end user experience will look like for the teams, specific groups, or individual employees within the organization. Now, Jeff, in this instance, also has access to the team members. So these are the employees. Somebody leaves the organization. Let's say Elena has left. I can go in and delete her out of the Workplace instance. But before I do so, I am going to take the 4 key projects, which she is a owner of, because we are sharing these with other employees in the organization. I'm going to assign new owners. I'm also going to have the ability to go in and wipe any of her devices that have Workplace associated. And when we do the wipe, we're only removing the Workplace content. We're not wiping the machine entirely of everything, of all instances on that device. Jeff being an administrator, Jeff also has access to the reports. So reporting in Workplace, first off, as you're seeing, you have the ability to export. I say the administrator has the ability to export any of these reports and make modifications outside of Workplace if needed. The reports are also based on 6 months of data. So 6 months of audit information will bring that back. So specifically, Jeff can go in and look at the projects. And projects are the root file structures that are being set up that you have access to. For example, which projects have been changed, which have files added, public links have been created, shares, removals, file locks, and so forth. Check user access. Where are the employees accessing the content from? We can go right down to IP address. We can even show specifically on a map where those users are logging into the Workplace service. And we can even deep dive and go right into details if needed. We also have some special reports against users, specifically shares by project, shares by users, and then shares by groups. So what we just reviewed was the administration view of Workplace. Just the same user interface that we saw from the standard user, with a few differences in that the administrator does have the ability, again, to configure the instance for the organization, report on the modification changes, anything that's occurring within Workplace, as well as viewing the team members and the devices within the organization. So if somebody loses an iPad, for example, may leave it in the back of an Uber, he can go in and remove that device and disable. So that will conclude our end user overview demonstration of Workplace this morning. If you do have questions regarding Workplace, we do have the online help, which I showed a moment ago when you click on the help within your Workplace online. Here's the URL. You can always contact us directly at sales@autotask.com. But in addition, please contact your service provider, which you are receiving the workplace service from. They are your first line of support. They will be able to assist with questions and answers. I'd like to thank you for your time this morning. Again, this is an Autotask review of Workplace from an end user's perspective, secure, file, sync, and share. And I wish everybody the great rest of your day.